He thought the Giantess was a carnivore and would eat him, but not like that. Jason Thorne hadn't eaten in 3 days. His parched throat felt like sandpaper, and the merciless twin suns of this god-forsaken planet beat down on his bare shoulders with relentless fury. The crash had left him with nothing but torn beige pants, a few straps of his flight harness, and some useless gear scattered across the desert landscape. "Water," he croaked, stumbling forward through the endless sea of rust-colored dunes. His thick, dark beard, usually well-maintained, was now wild and matted with sand. The stubborn bastard in him refused to give up, even as his muscles screamed for relief. The emergency beacon from his crashed ship had been broadcasting for weeks, but in this remote sector of space, the chances of rescue were about as good as finding an ice cream parlor in this hellhole. His ship, the Lucky Star, what a fucking joke that name turned out to be, lay in pieces somewhere behind him, scattered across 50 miles of desert after that damned solar flare had fried his navigation systems. The horizon wavered like a mirage, and Jason couldn't tell anymore if what he was seeing was real or just another hallucination. His legs finally gave out, and he collapsed face first into the sand. As consciousness began to slip away, he thought he heard footsteps, heavy ones that made the ground vibrate beneath his cheek. "Just another hallucination," he muttered, his eyes fluttering shut. When they opened again, Jason found himself staring up at something that his brain initially refused to process. A face, beautiful but decidedly alien, peered down at him. Green skin, like polished jade, stretched over high cheekbones. Long, dark green hair cascaded down like a waterfall of emerald silk. But what really caught his attention was the size of his observer. She had to be at least 12 feet tall. The giant woman was dressed in what looked like metallic armor that left little to the imagination, more resembling exotic lingerie than practical protection. In her hand, she held a spear that could have skewered him like a kebab. "Fuck me," Jason whispered, his parched throat barely managing the words. "I'm about to be alien dinner." The giantess tilted her head, studying him with curious golden eyes. Her lips curved into what might have been a smile or a predatory grin. Jason couldn't tell which, and he was too exhausted to care. She reached down with one massive hand, and he felt himself being lifted as easily as a child's toy. "If you're gonna eat me," he managed to croak, "at least make it quick." The last thing he saw before passing out again was her amused expression and what definitely looked like sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. When consciousness returned, the first thing Jason noticed was the sound of splashing water. His eyes snapped open, then widened to the size of dinner plates. The giant alien woman was bathing in what appeared to be a natural pool, completely naked, her green skin glistening with water droplets that caught the light like diamonds. She noticed his gaze and turned, giving him an unobstructed view that short-circuited what remained of his dehydrated brain. Their eyes met, and Jason did the only sensible thing he could think of. He promptly passed out again. The third time Jason regained consciousness, he found himself in a cave dwelling that somehow managed to be both primitive and sophisticated at the same time. Crystalline formations provided natural lighting, casting everything in a soft, ethereal glow. He was lying on something surprisingly comfortable, a bed of sorts made from materials he couldn't identify. "You're awake again, little one," a melodious voice said in perfect English, startling him. "I was beginning to worry about your fainting spells." Jason turned to find the giant alien woman watching him with evident amusement. She donned what appeared to be a more casual version of her armor, still revealing, but somehow more relaxed. She sat cross-legged nearby, making her closer to his height, though still towering over him. "You speak English?" he managed, his voice stronger thanks to what he assumed was medical attention while he was out. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a summer breeze. "My people are excellent linguists. We've been studying Earth broadcasts for decades. I'm Nayara, by the way, and you're Jason Thorne, according to your ship's registry. You found my ship? What was left of it?" She reached for something and handed him a container of water. "Drink slowly, you're still recovering." As Jason sipped the water gratefully, he noticed the wind outside had picked up considerably. Sand particles whistled past the cave entrance, which was partially covered by some kind of energy field. "Sandstorm coming," Yara explained, following his gaze. We'll be stuck here for at least a day, maybe more. Good thing I found you when I did. About that, Jason set down the water container. I thought you were going to eat me. Nyara's laughter filled the cave again, her golden eyes sparkling with mirth. Oh, you precious thing. We Valdorians are herbivores, actually, though. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a sultry purr. I wouldn't mind taking a bite out of you in other ways. Jason choked on air, his face flushing red. The way she looked at him made his heart race and his mind wander to places it probably shouldn't, considering she could probably snap him like a twig if she wanted to. He eloquently responded. Relax, little human, she teased. I'm not going to pounce on you while you're still recovering. Besides, the storm's getting worse. We should focus on staying warm. As if on cue, the temperature in the cave dropped noticeably as the storm intensified outside. The energy field at the entrance flickered with each impact of sand particles, creating an otherworldly light show. Here, Nyara said, moving closer and wrapping what felt like a silk-soft blanket around his shoulders. Your kind are so susceptible to temperature changes. It's adorable, really. We can't all be 12-foot-tall Amazons, Jason retorted, finding his voice and some of his usual swagger. Some of us have to be fun-sized. That earned him another musical laugh. Oh, I like you, Jason Thorne. You've got spirit. She settled beside him, her presence radiating warmth. Tell me, what brings a human so far from your usual territory? Jason explained about his cargo run gone wrong, the solar flare that had fried his systems, and the crash landing. As he talked, he found himself relaxing despite their size difference and the strangeness of the situation. Nyara was an attentive listener, asking intelligent questions and sharing her own knowledge of space phenomena. So you're a huntress? He asked eventually, gesturing to her armor and the spear that rested against the cave wall. Among other things, she replied mysteriously. My people believe in living in harmony with our environment, taking only what we need. But lately, she trailed off, looking troubled. What is it? Lately, things have been changing. Other species are pushing into our territory, destroying habitats, disrupting the natural order. That's partly why I was out here when I found you, monitoring the borders. The storm outside grew louder, and Nyara instinctively moved closer to him. Despite their size difference, there was something incredibly feminine and graceful about her movements. Cold? She asked, noticing his slight shiver. A little, he admitted. Desert planets? Hot as hell during the day, freezing at night. We should share body heat, she suggested, her tone practical but with an undercurrent of something else. It's the sensible thing to do. Jason looked up at her, trying to read her expression. Is that what you tell all the crashed pilots you rescue? Only the handsome one, she replied with a wink. Though you're actually my first. Most ships know better than to enter Valdorian space. Lucky me, he murmured as she carefully arranged herself behind him, her much larger form creating a protective cocoon of warmth. Indeed, she whispered near his ear, sending shivers down his spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Very lucky. They talked through the night as the storm raged outside, sharing stories of their worlds and cultures. Jason learned that Valdorian society valued strength and hunting prowess, but also art, music, and intellectual pursuit. Nyara, in turn, was fascinated by human resilience and adaptability. Your species is so young, she mused, absently playing with a strand of his hair. Yet you've spread so far across the galaxy. It's remarkable. We're too stubborn to stay in one place, Jason replied, fighting to keep his voice steady as her fingers brushed against his neck. Plus, we're curious, always wanting to see what's over the next horizon. Curious indeed, she purred, her free hand tracing patterns on his arm. I'm finding that trait quite appealing. The air between them grew charged with something that transcended their physical differences. Jason turned slightly, meeting her golden gaze. Nyara. Yes, little human. Are you seducing me? Her smile was predatory, but in a way that made his pulse race rather than his survival instincts kick in. That depends. Is it working? As the sandstorm intensified outside their shelter, the cave's temperature continued to drop precipitously. The crystalline formations that had been providing light began to pulse with an ethereal blue glow, responding to the electromagnetic disturbance in the atmosphere. The storm's affecting the mineral formations, Nyara explained, her voice slightly strained. It's also interfering with my body's thermal regulation. We Valdorians usually maintain perfect homeostasis, but these electromagnetic pulses... She shivered, her green skin taking on a slightly darker hue. Jason noticed her discomfort immediately. Are you all right? I will be. She managed a smile, though her teeth chattered slightly. But I may need to rely on more primitive methods of staying warm. The implications of her words hung in the air between them. Jason found himself studying her features. The elegant curve of her neck, the way her emerald hair cascaded over her shoulders, the subtle shift of her metallic armor as she breathed. Despite their size difference, there was something undeniably alluring about her. You know, he said, gathering his courage, earlier you mentioned choosing this remote post. Why would someone like you want to be out here alone? Nyara's golden eyes met his, filled with a mixture of vulnerability and interest. Someone like me? Beautiful, intelligent, capable of crushing boulders with your bare hands, which surprisingly, I find incredibly attractive. Her laughter echoed through the cave, but there was a note of melancholy in it. My people have very specific expectations about mating and partnerships. The females of my species are expected to choose mates based on political alliances and genetic compatibility. But She paused, running a finger along Jason's jaw. I've always been drawn to the unpredictable. Is that what I am? Unpredictable? You're impossible, she whispered, leaning closer. By all logical measures, we shouldn't work. The size difference alone should make this unthinkable. And yet, Jason prompted, his heart racing as her face drew nearer to his. And yet I find myself fascinated by your spirit, your resilience. The way you looked at me when you thought I was going to eat you, but still maintained your dignity. The way you're looking at me now? The electromagnetic interference from the storm grew stronger, causing the crystal formations to pulse more intensely. Nyara's shivering increased, and instinctively, Jason moved closer to her. We should do something about that temperature regulation problem of yours, he suggested, his voice husky. Are you offering to warm me up, little human? Her tone was playful, but her eyes held a deeper hunger. I'm offering whatever you want, Nyara. Though I should warn you, human males have been known to generate significant heat. She laughed again, but this time it was a low, sultry sound that made his pulse quicken. Is that so? Perhaps we should conduct some research on this phenomenon. For scientific purposes, of course. Of course, Jason agreed, reaching up to trace the curve of her face. Purely scientific. What followed was a dance of discovery as they explored the possibilities and challenges of their unique situation. Their size difference required creativity and patience, but they found that passion knew no physical bounds. The storm outside matched their intensity, its wild energy reflecting in the pulsing crystals that lit their intimate exploration. Hours later, as they lay entwined in the comfortable bedding, Nyara traced patterns on Jason's chest. You know, she mused, in all my years of studying humans, I never imagined this. What? That you'd end up with a fun-sized mate? That I'd find someone who could make me feel both powerful and vulnerable at the same time. My people value strength above all else, but there's strength and gentleness too. You've taught me that. Jason pulled her closer, marveling at how natural it felt now. And you've taught me that sometimes the scariest things in life turn out to be the most beautiful. The storm continued to rage outside, but neither of them noticed anymore. They were too absorbed in their own world, sharing stories, laughter, and tender moments as the night wore on. Nyara told him about her childhood among the towering cities of her people, while Jason shared tales of his adventures across the galaxy. My mother would be scandalized, Nyara chuckled, running her fingers through his beard. She's been trying to arrange a suitable match for years. I don't think crashed human pilot was what she had in mind. We could always invite her to dinner, Jason suggested with a grin. I promise to use my best table manners. Perhaps later. Right now, I'm not ready to share you with anyone. Her possessive tone sent pleasant shivers down his spine. As the night progressed, their connection deepened beyond the physical. They discovered a shared sense of humor, a mutual appreciation for life's ironies, and a complementary outlook on the universe. What had started as an unlikely rescue was blossoming into something neither of them had expected to find in this remote corner of space. Dawn broke over the desert world, the storm finally subsiding to reveal twin suns painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Jason woke to find himself still enveloped in Niara's protective embrace, her jade skin glowing in the early morning light filtering through the cave's entrance. "Morning, little warrior," she murmured, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years," he replied honestly, stretching carefully within her gentle hold. "Though I think we might have broken your monitoring equipment." Indeed, several of the sophisticated devices that had been mounted on the cave walls were now scattered across the floor, victims of their passionate evening. Niara merely chuckled, her golden eyes sparkling with mischief. "Worth it," she declared, running her fingers through his tousled hair. "Though we should probably assess the damage, both to the equipment and..." She paused, grinning. "Other things." Jason felt his face flush, remembering their creative solutions to their size difference. "I'm surprisingly intact, actually, though I might need a few hours before attempting any more scientific research. Humans," she teased, "so fragile yet so resilient. It's quite the paradox." They reluctantly disentangled themselves, and Niara moved to examine her monitoring station. The main console was still functioning, but several secondary systems were offline. As she worked on repairs, Jason found himself admiring the way she moved. Powerful yet graceful, like a lioness in human form. "See something you like?" she asked without turning around, clearly aware of his appreciative gaze. "Everything," he answered truthfully. "So I'm still trying to figure out how this works in the long term. I mean, I can't exactly take you home to meet my family. You'd have to duck to get through the door." Niara paused in her work, turning to face him with an unexpectedly serious expression. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No," he said quickly. "God, no, I'm just being practical. I'm a cargo pilot. Was a cargo pilot. You're a warrior huntress from an advanced civilization. We're literally from different worlds." She crossed the cave in 2 elegant strides, kneeling before him so they were closer to eye level. "Jason, my people have a saying. The heart knows no boundaries that the mind cannot overcome. Yes, there are challenges, but isn't that what makes it exciting?" "You're taking this remarkably well," he observed, reaching out to trace the curve of her jaw. "Most women I've dated would be freaking out about the future by now." "Most women you've dated weren't 12-foot-tall alien huntresses who could bench press a shuttle," she countered with a smirk. "Besides, I've always believed that the best things in life require a little creative problem solving." To demonstrate her point, she scooped him up effortlessly, bringing him to her eye level. "For example, this solves the height difference quite nicely, don't you think?" Jason wrapped his arms around her neck, marveling at how natural it felt now. "You know, when I first saw you, I thought you were going to devour me." "Oh, but I did," she purred, her voice dropping to that sultry tone that made his pulse race. "Just not in the way you expected." Their laughter echoed through the cave, interrupted only by the beeping of their repaired monitoring equipment. Niara reluctantly set him down to check the readings. "Interesting," she muttered, studying the display. "The storm seems to have affected more than just our equipment. The electromagnetic disturbance has altered some of the local mineral deposits. They're emanating a different frequency now." "Is that bad?" "Not bad, just different. Like us." She turned back to him with a thoughtful expression. "You know, there's an old Valdorian belief that significant changes in the natural world often herald significant changes in personal lives. My grandmother would say this was the universe's way of blessing our union." "Your grandmother sounds wise," Jason said, moving to stand beside her, though I'm not sure she had interspecies relationships in mind. "Actually," Niara's grin turned mischievous again, "there are some very interesting stories about my great-great-grandmother and a visiting dignitary from the Andromeda Galaxy. Apparently, size differences run in the family. As they worked together to restore the monitoring station, they fell into an easy rhythm. Jason's technical knowledge complemented Niara's strength and reach, allowing them to repair systems that would have been challenging for either of them alone. "We make a good team," he observed as they finished the last repair. "Though I have to ask, what happens when your superiors eventually check on you out here?" "They won't," she replied confidently. "This posting was essentially exile, my punishment for refusing an arranged marriage to a prominent warrior chief. As long as I maintain the monitoring station and keep the border secure, they're content to forget about me. Their loss is my gain, Jason said, pulling her down for a kiss, though we should probably figure out how to salvage some parts from my wreck. I don't fancy living on just local vegetation forever. Already thinking about moving in? She teased. How forward of you, Mr. Thorne. Well, you did say you wanted to conduct more research on human heat generation. The monitoring station's alarm pierced their peaceful morning routine, its urgent beeping drawing both Jason and Nyara to the console. The holographic display showed a Valdorian supply ship approaching the planet's atmosphere, weeks ahead of its scheduled arrival. Well, shit, Nyara muttered, her fingers dancing across the controls. They're not due for another lunar cycle. Something's wrong. Jason watched the ship's trajectory with growing concern. How much time do we have? 2 hours, maybe less. She turned to him, her golden eyes filled with determination. Jason, we need to decide what to do. My people, they're not exactly known for their tolerance of the unexpected. Are you ashamed of me? He asked quietly, though he already knew the answer from the way she looked at him. Never, she replied fiercely, lifting him effortlessly to eye level. You're the best thing that's crashed into my life. But the crew aboard that ship represents everything I left behind. Rigid traditions, arranged marriages, political alliances. They won't understand. Then make them understand, Jason said, cupping her face in his hands. You're the strongest, most amazing woman I've ever met. And yes, I'm including all species in that assessment. If anyone can change their minds, it's you. Her laugh was soft but genuine. Such faith in me, little warrior. She pressed her forehead to his, a gesture of deep intimacy among her people. Very well. We face this together. They spent the next hour preparing. Nyara donned her full ceremonial armor, its metallic surfaces gleaming in the desert sunlight. Jason cleaned up as best he could, though his torn pants and bare chest probably weren't going to impress any Valdorian dignitaries. Here, Nyara said, presenting him with a piece of clothing that looked like a cross between a toga and a military uniform. It's one of my smaller ceremonial garments. We can modify it. Working together, they managed to fashion something that looked almost dignified, if slightly exotic. The fabric, designed for Valdorian and formal occasions, shifted colors like liquid metal in the light. Now you look like a proper consort, Nyara approved, her eyes darkening with appreciation. Almost good enough to eat. Careful with that phrase, Jason teased, remembering their first meeting. It still makes me nervous. Their laughter was interrupted by another alarm. The supply ship had entered orbit. Moments later, the communication console crackled to life. Border Station Epsilon, this is supply vessel Thorian's Pride requesting landing clearance, deep male voice announced. Prepare for inspection and resupply. Nyara straightened to her full height, every inch the proud Valdorian huntress. Thorian's Pride, this is Border Guardian Nyara. Clearance granted. Be advised of unusual circumstances at this station. There was a pause. Define unusual circumstances, Guardian. She glanced at Jason, a mischievous glint in her eye. Let's just say I've made some interesting discoveries about local wildlife. The ship landed with impressive precision on the designated pad outside the cave complex. Jason and Nyara watched from the entrance as the dust settled, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. The vessel's main hatch opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing 3 Valdorian males in formal military attire. They were as tall as Nyara, their green skin darker and more mottled, suggesting advanced age or higher rank. The leader stepped forward, his golden eyes widening almost comically as he spotted Jason. Guardian Nyara, explain this immediately. Commander Thorian, she replied smoothly. May I present Jason Thorne, formerly a human cargo pilot, currently my chosen mate. The silence that followed was deafening. The commander's face went through several interesting color changes before settling on a deeper shade of green. Your mate? Yes, she said simply, drawing Jason closer. We've already completed the traditional binding rituals, though admittedly with some creative adaptations. One of the other officers made a choking sound. This is unprecedented. The Council will never... The Council, Nyara interrupted, exiled me to this post precisely because I refuse to follow their narrow-minded traditions. They have no say in my choice of mate. Commander Thorian studied Jason with intense curiosity. Human males are known for their adaptability and resilience. But this, he gestured vaguely at their size difference. How is this even possible? Very carefully, Jason replied with a straight face, causing Nyara to stifle a laugh. The commander's expression shifted from shock to something approaching respect. You have courage, small one. I'll grant you that. He turned to Nyara. The council sent us early because they've reconsidered your exile. They want you to return and take your rightful place among our people. I see, Nyara said coolly, and I assume they've already chosen a suitable mate for me? Actually, Thorian's lips twitched. They left that choice to you this time, though I doubt they anticipated this. Then they shouldn't have exiled me to a planet in human space. She replied with a shrug. One never knows what one might find in the desert. The commander barked out a laugh, surprising his subordinates. Indeed. Well, this will certainly make for an interesting report. Though I suggest you prepare yourselves. The council will undoubtedly want to study this unique pairing. They can study all they want, Nyara declared, lifting Jason into her arms possessively. But he's mine, and I'm keeping him. After the initial shock of their meeting, Commander Thorian requested a private audience with Nyara and Jason in the cave's main chamber. The other officers busied themselves with supply transfers, though their curious glances kept straying toward the unlikely couple. I must admit, Thorian said, settling his massive frame onto a crystalline formation. When I was sent to retrieve our wayward huntress, I expected resistance. I did not expect this. He gestured between them with an amused expression. Life has a way of surprising us, Nyara replied, absently running her fingers through Jason's hair as he sat beside her. The gesture, both protective and possessive, didn't escape Thorian's notice. Indeed. The commander leaned forward, his golden eyes twinkling. You know, your mother and I served together in the Great Expansion. She was just as unconventional as you are. This caught Nyara's attention. You knew my mother. Knew her. I helped her escape her own arranged marriage. He chuckled at their surprised expressions. Oh yes, it's quite the tale. Your grandmother had arranged for her to marry a prominent general's son. Your mother had other ideas, specifically about a certain diplomat from the Centauri system. My father, Nyara breathed, but I thought that he was a respected Valdorian warrior? Thorian shook his head, and the official records were altered to avoid scandal. Your father was indeed a warrior, but not Valdorian. He was half Centaurian, which explains your slightly smaller stature compared to most Valdorian females. Jason watched as Nyara processed this information, her grip on him tightening slightly. So you're saying... I'm saying that cross-species relationships, while rare, aren't unprecedented in your family line. Thorian's expression grew serious. However, there is something else we need to discuss. The medical scanners on my ship detected some unusual readings when we landed. Nyara tensed. What kind of readings? The kind that suggests you might want to visit our medical bay. He paused meaningfully. Both of you. Jason felt his heart skip a beat as Nyara's hand unconsciously moved to her midsection. They had been so caught up in their passion, so focused on overcoming their physical differences, that they hadn't considered... Is it possible, Jason asked, looking between Thorian and Nyara, with your genetic adaptability and our species' natural flexibility? Thorian mused. It's not just possible, it's confirmed. Congratulations, you're going to be parents. The silence that followed was broken by Nyara's musical laughter. Well, my little warrior, it seems you're more potent than either of us anticipated. Jason felt a mix of terror and elation. But how, the size difference... Valdorian females can control their offspring's initial size, Thorian explained, clearly enjoying their reactions. It's an evolutionary adaptation from our ancient past. The real question is what traits the child will inherit from both parents. The council will have a collective aneurysm, Nyara said with obvious delight. Perhaps, Thorian agreed, but they can't ignore the implications. A successful human Valdorian hybrid could bridge our species in ways we never imagined. And given the growing tensions between our peoples and other sectors. You want us to be diplomats? Jason asked incredulously. I want you to be exactly what you are, living proof that our species can not only coexist but create something new together. Thorian stood, his impressive height making the cave seem smaller. I'm willing to support your union officially, use my influence with the council, but you'll need to return with us to the capital. Nyara and Jason exchanged glances. They had built their own little world here in the desert, but now reality was intruding, bringing both challenges and opportunities. Before you decide, Thorian added with a sly smile, you should know that the capital has excellent medical facilities, much more comfortable living quarters, and… He paused for effect. Beds specially designed for couples of varying sizes. Nyara burst out laughing while Jason felt his face flush. You've given this some thought, she observed. Let's just say I've always believed in being prepared. Thorian headed toward the cave entrance, then turned back. Oh, and Nyara, your mother will be thrilled. She's been hoping you'd find someone who could match your spirit, regardless of their species or size. After he left, Jason turned to Nyara. So, we're having a baby. It appears so. She lifted him to eye level, her expression soft. Are you afraid? Terrified, he admitted, but also incredibly happy. Though I have to ask, how big is this baby going to be? Worried about being a fun-sized father? She teased, pulling him close. Don't be. Our child will be perfect, just like their father. Their amazingly tall, beautiful mother might have something to do with that too, he murmured, losing himself in her golden gaze. They spent the next hour in tender exploration, reaffirming their connection with gentle touches and passionate embraces, the news of their impending parenthood adding a new dimension to their intimacy. The future held countless challenges, but in that moment, nothing existed except their love and the miracle they had created together. The Thorian's pride proved to be a marvel of Valdorian engineering, its interior adapting to accommodate both massive Valdorians and their smaller guests. Jason found himself fascinated by the ship's blend of organic and mechanical technology, particularly the suite assigned to him and Nyara. The bed adjusts to optimal comfort for both partners, Commander Thorian explained with a knowing smirk as he showed them their quarters. A recent innovation, though I suspect you two have already developed your own creative solutions. Commander, Nyara said with mock severity, are you implying something about my relationship with my mate? My dear, I stopped implying things decades ago. He chuckled, heading for the door. We'll reach the capital in 3 days. I suggest you both rest while you can. The council will be demanding. After he left, Jason explored their suite, while Nyara changed out of her ceremonial armor. The room featured sweeping views of space through crystal-clear viewports, furniture that shifted size at a touch, and what appeared to be a garden of bioluminescent plants. This is a bit different from our cave, he observed as Nyara emerged wearing something that made his breath catch. The flowing garment seemed to be made of living metal, clinging to her curves while somehow remaining perfectly decent. Missing our primitive accommodations already? She teased, scooping him up with practiced ease. Though I must admit, that cave had its charms. It's where I first realized I wanted to devour you. In all the right ways. Jason laughed, running his fingers along her jaw. You know, I still can't believe how lucky I am. I crashed on a desert planet, thought I was going to die, and then got rescued by the most beautiful woman in the galaxy who, against all odds, decided I was worth keeping. Worth keeping? Nyara's golden eyes flashed. Jason Thorne, you are not some pet I decided to adopt. You are my mate, my equal, and the father of my child. Her expression softened. Though I do enjoy how perfectly you fit in my arms. They spent the next few hours exploring their new quarters in each other, marveling at how their bodies had learned to work together despite their differences. The ship's artificial gravity could be adjusted in their suite, allowing for interesting variations in their intimate moments. Later, as they lay entwined in their size-adjusting bed, Nyara traced patterns on Jason's chest. You're thinking too loud, she murmured. Just wondering what your people will make of us. I mean, I'm not exactly what they probably pictured for you. No, she agreed. You're better. You're strong in ways they don't understand yet. Physical size isn't everything. Though I must say, you've proven quite capable in that department, despite the challenges. Her suggestive tone made him grin. Careful, or we'll never leave this room. Would that be so terrible? She nipped playfully at his ear. Though I suppose we should at least attend dinner. The crew is dying to know more about the human who captured their exiled huntress's heart. The ship's dining hall had been modified to accommodate Jason, with a raised chair that brought him to eye level with the Valdorians. The crew, initially awkward around him, soon warmed up as he shared stories of his adventures as a cargo pilot. "So there I was," he recounted, gesturing with his fork, "stuck between a Martian customs official and a crate of what I thought were exotic fruits but turned out to be egg sacs for Jovian silkworms." The crew roared with laughter, even the most stoic officers cracking smiles. Nyara watched proudly as her mate charmed her people with his wit and charisma. "Your human is quite the diplomat," Commander Thorian observed quietly to Nyara. "The council won't know what hit them." "That's what I'm counting on," she replied, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "They'll either accept us as we are or you'll make them regret it," Thorian finished with a knowing smile. "You truly are your mother's daughter." The journey continued, each day bringing them closer to the capital and the challenges that awaited them. Jason and Nyara spent their time alternating between passionate encounters in their suite and social interactions with the crew, building allies among the Valdorians through humor, honesty, and their obvious devotion to each other. "You know what I love most about humans?" Nyara mused one night as they watched the stars streak by. "Your adaptability. You don't just survive challenges. You embrace them, find ways to turn them into advantages." "Says the woman who figured out how to make love to someone a third her size," Jason teased, earning himself a playful squeeze. "That was just creative problem solving," she purred, "though I must say the research has been thoroughly enjoyable." As their laughter echoed through their suite, Jason realized that no matter what challenges awaited them at the capital, they would face them together. He might be smaller than the average Valdorian, but his love for Nyara and their unborn child made him feel like he could take on an entire empire. The Valdorian capital emerged from the morning mist like a fever dream, towering crystalline spires that seemed to defy gravity, interconnected by bridges of living light. As the Thorians' pride descended toward the main spaceport, Jason noticed the streets were alive with color and movement. "The Festival of Union," Commander Thorian explained, noting their interest. "Rather appropriate timing, wouldn't you say?" Nyara groaned, pressing a hand to her midsection. Morning sickness, it seemed, didn't care about dramatic arrivals. The pregnancy was progressing faster than a normal Valdorian gestation, another unique aspect of their cross-species union. "Are you all right?" Jason asked, concerned. Even at her weakest, she was still physically stronger than him, but seeing her uncomfortable stirred his protective instincts. "Just your child making their presence known," she managed to smile. "They seem to have inherited your tendency to make dramatic entrances." The landing was smooth, but the real challenge began as they disembarked. A delegation of council members awaited them, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disapproval. Behind them, festival goers in elaborate costumes paused to stare at the unusual couple. Guardian Nyara, the lead counselor, stepped forward, his elaborate robes marking him as someone of importance. "Welcome home, and this must be your companion." "Mate," Nyara corrected firmly, lifting Jason to stand on a raised platform that brought him closer to eye level with the delegation. "Jason Thorne, my chosen partner and father of my child." The whispers that erupted at this announcement were cut short by Commander Thorian's authoritative voice. "The medical council has been notified. They're expecting you both for examinations and documentation of this unprecedented union." "Unprecedented indeed," the lead counselor, who introduced himself as High Elder Rathon, murmured. "Though perhaps we should conduct these proceedings after the festival. It would give your human time to acclimate." Jason recognized the diplomatic opening. "Actually, High Elder, I'd be honored to participate in the Festival of Union. What better way to understand Valdorian culture than to embrace its celebrations?" This earned him appreciative murmurs from the crowd that had gathered. Nyara's proud smile made his heart race, though he noticed she was still fighting waves of nausea. The medical examination came first, conducted in a facility that looked more like a luxury spa than a hospital. The chief physician, a female Valdorian named Solara, approached their case with fascinating enthusiasm. "The genetic compatibility is remarkable," she announced, studying holographic displays of their combined DNA. "The child appears to be developing normally, though at an accelerated rate. They've inherited the best of both species. Valdorian strength and adaptability combined with human resilience and cognitive flexibility." "And the size difference?" Jason asked the question that had been worrying him. "Your mate's natural ability to control offspring size means the child will be born at a manageable size," Solara assured them. though they may experience growth spurts during adolescence. You'll be pleased to know they've inherited your mate's control over their own physical dimensions, quite useful for a hybrid. The medical clearance was followed by a formal interview with the council, conducted in a chamber that somehow managed to accommodate both Valdorian and human scales comfortably. Jason noticed Niara fighting another wave of nausea and squeezed her hand supportively. "Tell us," Elder Rathon began, "how exactly did this union come about?" Jason couldn't resist. "Well, she was going to eat me, but not in the way I initially feared." The shocked silence that followed was broken by Niara's musical laughter and, surprisingly, Commander Thorian's deep chuckle. Several younger council members tried to hide their amusement, while the elders looked scandalized. "What my mate means," Niara interjected, still grinning, "is that our meeting was unexpected but destined. He crashed on my world, and I found not just a survivor, but a partner who matches me in spirit, if not in size." "And the physical aspects of your relationship?" another council member asked delicately. "Are none of your business," Niara replied sweetly, but with steel in her voice. "Though I will say that human adaptability is truly remarkable." Jason fought back a blush as several council members coughed uncomfortably. Commander Thorian looked like he was having the time of his life. The questioning continued, but was interrupted by the festival procession passing outside. The sounds of music and laughter filtered through the chamber's windows, and Jason noticed Niara's color improving as the nausea passed. "Perhaps," Elder Rathan suggested, "we should continue this after you've both participated in the festival rituals? It is, after all, a celebration of unions." "Excellent idea," Commander Thorian agreed quickly. "I'll escort them to their quarters to prepare." As they left the chamber, Niara pulled Jason into an alcove, kissing him thoroughly. "You were magnificent," she purred, "though I thought Elder Kira was going to faint when you made that eating comment." "Well, it's technically true," he grinned, running his fingers through her emerald hair. "You did end up consuming me, just in a much more enjoyable way." Their playful moment was interrupted by Commander Thorian clearing his throat. "If you two could postpone the demonstration of your compatibility, there's a festival waiting. And Niara, your mother just arrived. She's rather eager to meet the human who managed to make an honest woman of her rebellious daughter." The Festival of Union's culminating ceremony transformed the capital's central plaza into a breathtaking spectacle. Bioluminescent flowers cascaded from floating platforms, while crystalline structures amplified the ethereal music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Jason stood on a specially designed platform that brought him to proper height. Dressed in a stunning combination of Valdorian ceremonial armor, modified to his size in traditional human formal wear. Beside him, Niara was resplendent in armor that somehow managed to be both warrior-like and sensual, her emerald hair adorned with living crystals that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "Nervous," she whispered, noticing his slight fidget. "About declaring my love for you in front of your entire civilization?" He grinned up at her, terrified, but in a good way. Commander Thorian approached them, accompanied by Niara's mother, Liara, a stunning Valdorian woman who had immediately charmed Jason with her wit and unconditional acceptance of their relationship. "The council has agreed to let you participate in the ancient bonding ritual," Thorian announced. "Though they're still arguing about the protocol adjustments needed for your unique situation." "Let them argue," Liara waved dismissively. "Love doesn't follow protocols. Besides," she winked at Jason, "some of us prefer our mates fun-sized." The ceremony began as the twin suns set, bathing the plaza in golden light. Thousands of Valdorians gathered to witness what would become a historic moment in their civilization's history. Elder Rathan stood before the assembled crowd, his expression having softened considerably since their first meeting. "Today," his voice carried across the plaza, "we witnessed not just a union of hearts, but a bridge between worlds. When Guardian Niara was exiled to that distant outpost, we thought we were punishing her defiance. Instead, we gave her the freedom to find a love that challenges everything we thought we knew about compatibility." Jason felt Niara's hand tighten around his as the elder continued. "This human, Jason Thorne, crashed into our world expecting death. Instead, he found life, love, and managed to create something our scientists thought impossible, a true fusion of our species." The elder gestured to Niara's slightly rounded midsection. "Their child will be the first of their kind, proving that love truly knows no bounds, not of size, species, or society's expectations. The traditional ceremony took on new meaning as they adapted it to their unique partnership. Instead of the usual warrior's challenge, they demonstrated their compatibility through a dance that combined Valdorian grace with human agility. Nyara's natural ability to adjust her size came into play, creating moments of perfect synchronization that drew gasps of appreciation from the crowd. When it came time for their vows, Jason spoke first, his voice clear and strong despite his racing heart. "I crashed on your world thinking I was about to be eaten by a giant alien predator," he began, drawing laughs from the audience. "Instead, I found a woman who devoured my heart in ways I never imagined possible. You've shown me that love doesn't care about physical differences. It only cares about the connection between souls. You're my huntress, my protector, my equal, and soon the mother of our child. I pledge myself to you, all of me, forever." Nyara's golden eyes shimmered with emotion as she responded. "My little warrior, who proved to be greater than any giant, you crashed into my world and shattered every preconception I had about love, about humans, about what's possible when two hearts beat as one. You filled my solitude with laughter, my exile with purpose, and my future with hope. I pledge myself to you, all of me, forever." The ceremony concluded with a traditional Valdorian blessing, modified to include elements of human wedding rituals. As they sealed their union with a kiss that required some creative positioning, the crystals throughout the plaza pulsed with rainbow colors, responding to the pure emotion of the moment. Later, in their private chambers, as they celebrated their union in their own intimate way, Jason marveled at how far they'd come from that first meeting in the desert. "You know," he murmured, tracing patterns on her jade skin, "I never did thank you properly for not eating me that day." "Oh, but I did eat you," she purred, pulling him closer. "Just not in the way you feared, and I plan to keep devouring you for the rest of our lives. Promise? Promise." 6 months later, Jason paced outside the medical chamber, his heart thundering in his chest. Commander Thorian placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, which nearly knocked him over, despite the gentleness of the gesture. "Relax, little brother," Thorian chuckled. "Valdorian women are built for this." A cry from within the chamber made both men freeze. Not a cry of pain, but the first wail of a new life entering the universe. The doors slid open, and Jason rushed in to find Nyara propped up on a birthing couch, her emerald hair damp with exertion, but her golden eyes bright with joy. In her arms lay a miracle. Their daughter was smaller than a Valdorian infant, but larger than a human one, her skin a pale jade that seemed to shift in the light. When she opened her eyes, they were his deep brown, but flecked with her mother's gold. A tuft of emerald hair crowned her head. "She's perfect," Jason breathed, reaching out to touch her tiny hand. The baby grabbed his finger with surprising strength, then proceeded to adjust her size slightly, growing just enough to better fit her mother's embrace. "She has your adaptability," Nyara smiled tiredly, "and my gift of size control. What shall we call her?" "Oriana," Jason suggested, watching the twin suns rise through the chamber window. "For the dawn she represents." Their daughter's naming ceremony attracted diplomats from both species, all eager to witness this new chapter in human-Valdorian relations. But Jason and Nyara barely noticed the political implications. They were too busy falling in love with their perfect blend of two worlds. 1 year later, they stood in the entrance of their old cave dwelling, now the centerpiece of a thriving cultural exchange center. Oriana, perched on her mother's shoulder and currently about the size of a human toddler, pointed excitedly at the crystalline formations. "This is where Mama thought Daddy would make a good snack," she giggled, already showing signs of inheriting both her father's wit and her mother's mischievous nature. "And instead," Nyara pulled Jason close, "and he became my feast of love." "Really?" Jason raised an eyebrow. "We're teaching our daughter these puns already?" Their laughter echoed through the cave, joining the sounds of human and Valdorian voices from the center beyond. A symphony of two species learning to bridge their differences, inspired by a love that began with a crash landing and a misunderstanding about being eaten. Oriana shifted size again, just enough to hug both her parents at once, embodying in her very existence the truth they had discovered in this desert: that love knows no bounds, whether of size, species, or space itself.